I feel like I've got this morning, we're going to continue on talking about worship. The rocks will cry out. And I feel like I've just got like a bunch of nuggets. Alright?
You know what fries are?
Right, not that kind of nuggets. Boulders. I've got a bunch of boulders. Alright, maybe I should just say I've got some things that you might be useful to your life. And you can grab a few things and kind of put it together, create your own sermon in your head. Is that alright?
Pearls.
Yeah, right. Some pearls. Pearls, alright, that's great. Some pearls. So, we're going to get stuck into it. I was thinking about, at some point in time, showing... has anyone seen the Louis Giglio presentations of How Great Is Our God in the Struggle? So good, aren't they? So I was thinking... Yeah, put it up there. I was thinking of doing that and presenting that at some point in time, and Mez gave us that idea, and it's a great idea. I also thought about what we'd call in university plagiarising it, and kind of showing the pictures. In the kingdom, it's called a compliment, that you're copying somebody else's...
Plagiarism.
Well, in uni it's plagiarism, yes, that's for sure. But in the sense of the kingdom, it's like saying, you know, this is a really good message that needs to be heard again. And I have actually presented some of those things in the past, and there'll be a few things that we talk about and reference every now and then. But I really feel like God was saying to us as a church to really, I think this is a very significant day for us as a church. He spoke to me recently and he said, look, it's time to grow up. It's time to grow up as a church. And the time is right now. Mum and Dad have kind of left the home, and not that they weren't stopping us from growing up, but it's a significant moment for us. It's time for us to grow up. And some of that means taking, for some of us, it's taking ownership of our own faith. All right? And so, yes, you come here to church to get fed, but that's not the reason we come to church. The reason we come to church is to worship together as a community. That's the first reason. The second reason is to help each other out, and which means you get helped out. Like every time that you encourage somebody, that person is being encouraged, right? And every time you do that, every time somebody does that to you, obviously you're being encouraged. And hopefully right now, you know, you're being edified, you're being encouraged right now by listening to me. But the point is, we can't have our faith resting on what happens here on a Sunday morning. It doesn't stop us from coming on Sunday morning. It doesn't replace Sunday morning, but it does actually say, you know what, I've got to step up. That's for some of us. And so the idea is basically that we have to have our own encounter. And so when we open this book, we get our own encounter. We get fed directly from the source, not indirectly. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And so here's one way that you can get fed. I know this is a way that Bill and I get fed on a regular basis. I mean, one of the things that you have to do when you're standing up here on a regular basis is you need to get fed from somewhere else. All right, does that make sense? And obviously everybody feeds. We feed each other. Like Karen will have a conversation with me and she'll say, Glenn, you know what? Share something with me. I'll be encouraged and I'll be fed. You know, and then, you know, Valma will encourage me and say, you know what, I've got a word from God for you and I'll get fed. So we need community just as much as anybody else. But I also love to hear other preachers preach because it's such a blessing. So we do that on a regular basis. Bill and I probably listen to 4 or 5 sermons every single week. And one of the sermons we watched a couple of times was the Louis Giglio one. So I put in the messages in our messages part in our website, and so it's homework. All right. So I'm giving you guys homework. You like that? Homework. Do you like that, Molly?
Somebody
Just
started
at school.
something.
You get homework again. All right. Go on there. Actually, no. Look. The reality is, Louis Giglio preached here a couple of weeks ago. If you weren't here, you missed it. It was amazing. And Pastor Louis Giglio, and we, don't be pretended by all the lights and the thousands of people that were there in the video. That was just to make it look better. But if you missed it, you can go catch it on C3SB's website. All right, that makes sense. All right. The other thing I was as we were worshipping this morning, I felt like I was saying, as you grow up, I'm raising you up. And Ephesians 2, verse 6 says this. See if I can find it. That's right.
Hallelujah, says the voice.
That's right. Has anyone got an interpretation from that? The Bible says if we speak in tongues, then we need to
Dog tongues.
interpret that. The rocks are crying out. Alright, so Ephesians 2, verse 6 says this, and God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms in Christ Jesus. It's not an abstract thought. Christ literally has raised us up. If we are in him, we're being raised up. Where is Jesus? At the right hand of the Father. Where are we? The right hand of the Father. Because we are in him. So if we are in him, we are being raised up. And so everything changes from that point of view. We see from the perspective of heaven. And we have the ear of God, and he has our ear as we do that. Alright, so I really feel like that's a word for us, that there's a significant moment where he's actually going to raise us up in a significant way. Alright. Anyway, that's what I felt from God was saying to us this morning. Do you guys want to turn to... So here's the different nuggets coming, okay? Alright, get ready, grab a nugget and enjoy. Psalm 46 verse 10. Some of this I've talked about before, some of I haven't. Psalm 46 verse 10, one of my favourite verses in the entire Bible. Does anyone know this one? Alright, you will as soon as I say it. Be still. Be still and know that I am God. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Be still and know that I'm God. That word still, the Hebrew word is Rapha. He's not a tennis player. Rapha means cease, stop, give up. Let's give up. It's like, I've got nothing. Right now I've got nothing. And that word no, be still and know, is the word yada. 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 Yada, yada, yada. Yeah? And yada means, just like in Seinfeld, it kind of meant the same thing. Jerry used yada, yada, yada as... So Elaine, I don't know if who loves Seinfeld? Who loves Seinfeld? Okay, we're organising a Seinfeld night. Alright? Okay? You're not allowed to come if you don't know what it is. Alright, it's one of those things. Alright. I love Seinfeld, and Pastor Seinfeld, Pastor Jerry, is an amazing commentator on the world, and he has this episode called Yada Yada Yada, and Elaine comes in and says, George says that his ex-girlfriend, his girlfriend is that right? That's his girlfriend at the time. Says, well, my ex-boyfriend came over last night and yada yada yada, and I'm really tired today. And George is like saying to the rest of the gang, like, what was the yada yada yada? Like, what? She just skipped over. Like, what happened? And now she's so like, what's going on? You know, like, he wants to know what happened. And so Jerry and George and are talking about this, and Elaine, and she says, and George says, you don't think it was yada yada sex, do you? And Elaine says, I've yada yada sex. In other words, she was saying, like, I skipped over the, we went to dinner, we did this, and yada yada yada. And here we are. Alright? Now the point is, this word yada in the Bible means exactly the same thing. And Pastor Jerry, being the good Jewish boy that he is, he actually probably knows what this word actually means. It's got this multiple layers of fun meaning, And obviously the yada yada yada, we use it as a blah 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 or rada rada. What's the other one you can kind of use?
What's it called? Etc.
Etc. That's how they were using it, right? But it has this double meaning. And so it says that Adam, Yada, Eve, and they had little munchkins. That's what it says in the Bible. That's what it says. I don't know what the other Hebrew words are, but I know that word. But in our Bible, we translate it. In many places, we translate it as lay. We use all these, euphemisms to say what we're not trying to say, but we all kind of know what's going on.
No, we can't know.
Oh, we know what's going on. And some Bibles will say, some English Bibles will translate that word, yada, as no. They'll say, Adam knew Eve and they had kids. It's the same word. Be still, give up, so let it go. And have intimate, deep relationship with God. That's what it means. That's what it means. It means don't go on Instagram when you're bored. It means just sit there for a bit and experience Him, have an encounter with Him. It means, when you're working so hard to get something to happen and you're not getting it, and the breakthrough is not happening, and sometimes you just got to say, you know what? God, I give up. And He turns up. Sometimes He says, strive and work hard, but always in His strength, as it says in Colossians. But other times He says, you know what? I don't want you to even do a thing. That's often God's strategy. God has these crazy strategies that just don't make any sense. One of my favourite strategies: walk around the city walls and yell at it. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine, walking around this building? We'll just do it we could experiment if you like, and probably nothing will happen, I'm sure, because God didn't tell us to do it. But imagine this: you walk around Swansea once a day for 7 days. You're getting fit, it's good, it's awesome. Alright, you may as well take some pamphlets and get paid some money while you're doing it. Do something like that. Alright, so here we go, walking around Swansea. 7th day, you walk around Swansea 7 times, and then you go, rah! Thanks, Daisy. And then what does everyone do? They look at you and think you're an idiot. Why did you yell at Swansea? Situational. Keep going. It's just Swansea. Alright, keep on moving. Alright. Now, here's the thing. That was God's strategy for the Israelites to take on Jericho. It's incredible, isn't it? Now, there's actually archaeological evidence in Jericho that the walls did collapse. And it's very interesting. If you know the story about Jericho, there's a lady there who, his name is Rahab, who is the grandmother of King David. And she partnered with the spies, and God said, you're going to be saved. Now, she was, does anyone remember who she was? She's a prostitute. And do you know where? Prostitutes weren't thought of as being the elite people of society back then. And so she lived on the edge of society, which was in the wall. Actually the wall. She actually lived in the wall. The most dangerous place to live in ancient times would have been the wall, wouldn't it? That's where she lived, right on the outside. And in fact, they have done a survey of all of Jericho, ancient Jericho, the archaeological survey, and they have found out that the entire wall has collapsed, except for one spot. Where do you reckon that was? Where the window was. That's right. God saved her in not just in that, like not just from the Israelites attacking her, but also this, what happened? An earthquake? We don't know how God did this, but those walls came down, and except for one spot. And so it's a powerful thing to just give up, to be still, and just say, God, I'm here. Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. Cease striving, give up, and have deep and intimate relationship. Hey, last week I said something about if you choose not to worship God, your brain can go a bit crazy. Yeah. So the idea of worship actually helps you to be clear in your thinking. But, that's actually what happened. In Romans it talks about that. We're going to talk about the opposite of that today. So obviously, if you do worship God, then your thinking will be extremely clear. Romans 12 verse 1. Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. Quick pause there. I think Judy said something about this today. Worship is not music. Obviously, it's a way of worshipping God, and it's one of my favourite ways. In fact, it's probably my favourite way because I'm a musician. So it just it works for me. But what happens up here does not equal worship. Worship is, in the Old Testament, worship was all about sacrifice. Worship was all about, I've got 10 sheep, I'm going to give God one of my sheep. That's what worship was about, and you literally would sacrifice that animal and give that away. That was worship. And literally, worship is still the same thing, but not in the sense of I'm going to kill a lamb. I've got some chickens. I don't have to kill one of my chickens and offer that up to God. Right? That's not what happens anymore. Jesus fulfilled that idea of sacrifice once and for all when he died on the cross for us. So that doesn't happen anymore. But this idea of giving continues to stay on. So and here it says, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices. Living sacrifices. This is an act of worship, to offer ourselves as a living sacrifice. So we're not talking about money, we're not talking about anything like that right at the moment. We're talking about yourself, giving yourself to God. Not giving 10% of yourself to God, giving yourself. Giving your whole self to God and being a living sacrifice. You know what the difficult thing about being a living sacrifice is? Yeah, you can crawl off the altar any time. Because it starts to hurt. If you're a sacrifice, it's a sacrifice done, it's finished. You can't move. But a living sacrifice, well, you've got to choose daily to stay there. And this is where we need to grow up as a church, I think, for us. Well, some of us anyway. I don't know. I know I do. I've got to grow up more there. We all do. I'm sure we all do. We've got to grow up and be living sacrifices. Each day you wake up, you put yourself back on that altar. Lord, I'm worshipping you today. I'm putting myself back on that altar. You know, one of the... I know this is going to sound sort of silly, a bit trivial in a way, but for me at the time, it was a real living sacrifice. I had just become a Christian, and I was a bus driver for a little while, and driving buses, and enjoyed driving. I had a nice bus. I looked after my bus. We had the same bus at the bus company I was working at, which was Glenora Bus Company. I just changed it to Glenn's Bus Company. And Glenora Bus Company, they would, if you're a permanent driver, that you had a bus. You had your own bus. Right? You looked after it and you took care of your own bus. It was awesome. So this is my bus, you know. And so I'd drive people to the city, I'm driving around town, doing some awesome stuff. I pick up some kids in the afternoon, and they would trash my bus every single afternoon. Rotten apple cores, you know, their lunch that they didn't eat, you know, and their mum's going to be upset because they didn't eat their fruit at lunchtime. We'll just chuck it on the floor on the bus, all right? Have you ever done this? Have you guys done this? I remember doing it when I used to catch the bus to school. But I mean, it's an age-appropriate thing of learning how to be a good member of society. But one of those things is trash the bus, right? So I would literally, I'd only just become a Christian, and I would literally, before I would stop my bus really quickly before I then got and picked up, you know, the 5 o'clock business suits from Sydney. I would stop my bus, sweep the floor. And I was always thinking, as I'm doing this, because it didn't work for the business suits, I said to myself, Lord, I'm doing this for you. And I'll just keep sweeping it. And I'm going to do this for you, Lord. Remember really clear, I'm doing this for you, Lord, because I hated doing it. I'm going to do this for you. And so here's the deal. Everything that we do actually is worship if we do it for Him, if we do it for Him. When you care for that patient, not just administering the drugs that come in, but when you really care for them, and you grab their hand and you just say, it's going to be all right, and you grab their hand, and that's worship. You know, as you're patient with that student that's getting on your nerves. That's a form of worship. That's a form of worship. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Paul makes it extremely clear. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You know, in 1517, there was a guy called Martin Luther. Anyone heard of him? Yeah.
Was it King?
No, not Martin Luther King. But Martin Luther King was named after this guy called Martin Luther. So Martin Luther King was a great guy. He was an activist for getting equality for African American people. And Martin Luther was this man that in 1517 was reading his Bible in the original Latin. Probably Hebrew and Greek he was reading too. Latin's not the original Bible, just a little joke. All right. And was that hilarious? Okay. Yeah, good. And so he was reading his Bible, and there were some things there that he didn't agree with the church at the time. That church was the Catholic Church, and he read these things and he went, you know what? We're actually saved by grace. He's like, there's a few other things I don't agree with here. And so he nailed, this is always a good idea when you don't agree with somebody, he nailed a book that he wrote called 95 Things I've Got Issues With You. Alright, I've got 95 issues with you. And he nailed this book to the Pope's door. Good plan?
Yeah, it's a great one.
Great plan. So he did this, and look, I tell you what, look, I agree with probably most of the stuff that he nailed to that door. And we exist today as what we call a Protestant church, as part of the Protestant church, which means protesting against the other part of the church. And we exist today because of that. Now, the thing is, since that day, 1517, there's been about 50,000 church splits since then. So before then, there was one church split. It was about 1,000 AD, right? Was that time, and that was the Eastern Church and the West Church, right? So the Roman Catholic Church, the West side of things, and then the Eastern Church, which is like the Egyptian Coptic, Russian Orthodox Church, that kind of thing, right? Quick church history, right? Greek Orthodox as well. Yes, anything probably ending with Orthodox. So there was this church split there, and then 500 years later, there's another church split between the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. And then from then on, we get the Anglicans and the Presbyterians, and we get the Lutherans, and we get a whole bunch of other churches. And every year, each one of those churches decide to have a bit of a split. And then we have the Reformed such and such and such as church. And then other things happen, and then there's another church, and then Pentecost, 1907, there was this incredible church that the Holy Spirit just fell upon. We call it Azusa Street, and that's the birth of the Pentecostal church, which is us today. Even though back in, obviously in the book of Acts, that was happening too. But the modern day Pentecostal church really kind of birthed around 1907, that Azusa Street. Most of us our heritage can be traced back to that particular moment, right? And 1904 was the Welsh Revival, which kind of sparked that. And so, but then all these other little churches started happening all over the place. Now here's the point. We've camped around truth. In other words, I don't agree with you, so I'm going to go make my own church. And because of that, the sermon has actually become central to Protestant churches. Because we want to make sure everyone thinks the right way. Which we do. I still think that's okay. Like, we want people to think right. That's a good thing, right? We're trying to help. That's okay. But it's become the central thing of many Protestant churches, which we're part of that umbrella of Protestant churches. But I want to kind of suggest to you that even though the Protestant church might camp around truth, or what they think is truth, or all that kind of stuff, the Israelites camped around his presence. They would not move unless God moved. In the desert, the Israelites had the fire by night and the cloud by day. And they would not move until that cloud moved. The cloud moved, they went, rightio, time to go, kids. Pack up your bed, pack up your tent. It's time to go. God's on the move, we're going too. I want to suggest that as a church, we need to camp around his presence. The reason why we come is to come to be in his presence together. Right? And it says in the Bible that God inhabits the praises of men and women. So in other words, God is there when you're worshipping. And so the idea of camping around truth, although it's good to be thinking correctly, it's more important to be gathering around him than it is to be gathering around anything else. Does that make sense? To be still, know that He is God. Give up, cease striving, and have deep, intimate relationship with God. Now, as we do that, as we spend time in His presence, we are transformed from glory to glory, always. Every time we spend time with Him, we become transformed. And then it says this, so when we worship, we get transformed. Does that kind of make sense, yeah? As we worship, we get transformed. Then it says this in verse 2 still. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will. If you want to hear His voice, spend time in His presence. If you want to know what His will is for your life, spend time in His presence. And we talked about last week, specific and generic revelation. If you want specific revelation in your life, spend time in His presence. How do you do that? Well, you worship. You worship. And you give up. And you offer your entire life to Him. Let's pray.